right, Khan. All right, Shalom. Brother, still good. Brothers can hear me pretty good.
Khan.
You can hear me pretty good, Oxine.
Yeah, Khan, I can hear you.
All right, Khan. All praises. What we usually do, man. I'm gonna try to give maybe about I'll say maybe like 3 to 5 minutes, just for people who are gonna be joining in the chat. Most High willing to have some time to join in, and then right after that we'll get started. So just to give a little bit of time to wait. As I said last time, as people who've tuned in before, they know that we kind of just getting started with these lives. We constantly increasing, Most High willing. We'll continue to increase and get better at them. So, right now that's where we at. We got a pretty edifying lesson. Most High willing is edifying, but again, we're gonna take like maybe 3 to 5 minutes, and see who's gonna be able to come in. Most High willing.
You got something you want me to read while we're waiting? I've been digging in them Psalms all week.
Hey, we got some mighty Psalms going on too, brother. That's kind of a part of the things that I was going to bring out a little bit in the book of Psalms. I would say, brother, if you could, we can start with the classic, man. I always like to bring that out at camp. Let me pull it up real fast. 2 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 17. And if there's anything else that's on the brother's spirit, then, definitely go ahead and bring that out, man. We can get a few of these precepts out.
2 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 17. For we are not as many which corrupt the word of God, but as of sincerity, but as of God, in the sight of God, speak we in Christ.
And that verse has just become a pillar for us brothers in Dallas. They go out there to do the work. We try to make sure that we are able to live by mighty wisdom like this, to where when we do go out and teach and preach, rebuke, whatever it is that we out there doing on the highways and hedges, even throughout our lives, even on this live, we do our best to do so in sincerity, as if we do so in the sight of the Most High God. So that's just always a pillar that us brothers go by, something we bring out before every camp. So all praise to the Most High. Did any other brother have anything? I think, like I said, maybe about 2 minutes or so, we're going to go ahead and get started with the lesson. Shalom, brother Taz. Hope I say this right. Tazarah. If I mispronounced that, Salakia. But welcome, brother. Again, man, we'll do our best to communicate in the chat as well. If anybody got any questions, Most High willing, they'll be pertaining to the lesson at hand, so we can go ahead and get this edification in there. But if anybody got any questions or, want anything to be added to the lesson, we'll do our best to try to communicate with the chat. But Shalom, brother. We got our brothers from BOW in here. All praises.
So if I can, I want to read the first Psalm, before we get going.
What you want me to go to?
The first Psalm.
Chapter 1.
Psalm chapter 1.
All right,
verse 1 through 6. I'll read it. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and his law doeth he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. The ungodly are not so, but are like the chaff which the wind driveth away. Therefore the ungodly shall not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish.
All praise to the Most High. Yeah, that's mighty right there, brother. Like I said, we're gonna be tapping into, some things going into King David. He's really integral to this lesson that we're bringing out. Just to give people a heads up, I know you read the title. That's what us brothers are going to be going into, is why do we keep the commandments of the Most High? And with that, I'll go ahead and get started. So like I said, we was given like maybe 3 to 5 minutes, but we'll go ahead and get started. For all the people that have joined, Most High willing, more do join in. And Most High willing, this lesson is edifying. We want to, of course, first give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahawah by Hashem Yahweh Shai, which is the Most High, in the name of his only begotten Son. So again, as you can see in the title, this lesson is going into why do we keep the commandments? And just to pose a question, is it through love or is it through justification, to try to be justified? Us brothers, we deal with this often at camp, and any brother that's in the camp probably deals with this question a lot. A lot of Christians, this is a big stumbling block for them. And as we go into the lesson, you're going to see how that stumbling block is. But believe it or not, this can also be a stumbling block for some of us brothers in the truth. So we feel like this is a very mighty lesson to get into. Why do we keep the commandments? I mean, it's us Israelites, us brothers in the camps, we often teach that we are to keep the commandments, and rightly so. But another good reason would be, why do we keep the commandments? Because again, a lot of the scoffing on the highways and hedges or in the Christian church is that brothers are trying to be justified by the law, or brothers are trying to keep the commandments for some unrighteous reason. We had a brother at our last camp that said that anybody who goes through the book or through the Bible, through the Old Testament, wherever he goes and seeks to keep the commandments of God, that shows a lack of faith. Okay, so there's many brothers and sisters out there that actually believe that. They don't understand the marriage between faith and works and why brothers keep the commandments. So again, we're going to try to dive into that. Most High willing, this lesson is edifying. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in there, brother. If we could, we're going to start in the book of Exodus. Go right to the beginning, man, where the 10 commandments are at. And I think that's some pretty edifying wisdom for us to be able to go into. The book of Exodus, brother, we're going to start at verse, I say we could start at verse 6, brother. Exodus chapter 20 and verse 6.
Exodus chapter 20 and verse 6. And showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take thy name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain.
Salakia, brother. If we could, I actually want to get verse 5 as well, because
Okay.
verse 5 actually works well with verse 6. I want us to get that understanding. If we could do verse 5 as well, brother.
Okay. Exodus chapter 20 and verse 5. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments.
Can we read verse 6 one more time, brother?
And showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments.
So again, this is in what most even Christians would stand on, the 10 commandments, where we understand that the Most High is going to visit our iniquity on all those who hate him. Notice how this relationship is being given in the sense of hating the Most High versus loving the Most High. You're going to notice how this lesson goes, because one of the main, I'm not going to call it a stumbling block, but one of the main things that a lot of Christians will go to is Matthew 22 and 36, where Yahawah Shai, who they know as Jesus Christ, would say that there were 2 great commandments, that we love the Most High and that we also love our brother. And they're not wrong in that understanding, but where they often get the stumbling block at is that many people don't know what that love looks like, or what that belief looks like, or what that faith looks like. That love that we were supposed to be given is not just in word, but it's also got to be in deed. Matter of fact, I don't want to say any of these things without being able to prove it. So just to go ahead and tackle this, I'm pull up 1 Samuel chapter 2 and verse 3, brother. Can you read that one for me, just so we can understand that it is our actions that the Most High is weighing?
Okay. 1 Samuel chapter 2 and verse 3. Talk no more exceedingly proudly. Let no arrogancy come out of your mouth, for the Lord is a God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed.
And by him, actions are weighed. So again, the love that we profess to have for the Most High, even the love that we profess to have for our brothers, is not just a word. It's not just something that we can say. In that understanding of Most High willing, we can get to Matthew 22. It did say that on those two great commandments hang all the law and the prophets. So it was not a doing away with of the law and the prophets, just giving us an understanding of that love is going to have all of those things included in them. I want to also just grab with that same point, brother, if we can, Jeremiah chapter 17. And if we can start at verse 9, brother, we're going to go down to verse 10.
Jeremiah chapter 17 and verse 9. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? I, the Lord, search the heart. I try the reins, even to give every man according to his ways and according to the fruit of his doings.
According to his ways and according to the fruit of his doing. So again, it's not just enough to say that we love the Most High or to say that we love our brother. There's fruit that come with that. So as brothers want to really establish this point that we do keep the commandments because we love the Most High, but love has something that goes with it. It's not just a nice saying. It's not just reaching in the sky and giving hugs. Okay, it actually comes with actions, as we read in 1 Samuel 2 and 3. But I want to get something else real quick, brother, if we can, because this is the classic. But I think it's mighty when you read all the way through it about how the Most High chose Israel and that relationship between the Most High choosing us and him being our Most High power. If we can start, brother, I want to, matter of fact, let's start from the classic, verse 6, Deuteronomy chapter 7 and verse 6. We're going to try to read down to, I believe, verse 11.
Deuteronomy chapter 7 and verse 6. For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. The Lord did not set his love upon you, nor choose you, because ye were more in number than any people, for ye were the fewest of all people, but because the Lord loved you, and because he would keep the oath which he had sworn unto your fathers, hath the Lord brought you out with a mighty hand, and redeemed you out of the house of bondmen, from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Know therefore that the Lord thy God, he is God, the faithful God, which keepeth covenant and mercy with them that love him, and keep his commandments.
Say that verse, say that part one more time. I don't mean to stop you, brother Salakia, but again, what we're trying to establish is that love is the keeping of the commandments. Now, us brothers in the truth, we know this. So that's why I say this part is really going into some of our Christian brothers and sisters who are stumbling at that block of not truly understanding what our love comes with. You know, us brothers that are in this truth, that have been around the word a lot, we've been around camps a lot, we've seen a lot of different scenarios. We understand the relationship between our love and that coming with an action. But I want you to read that line one more time, brother. Starting from where are we at, brother? Yeah.
I just started from the top, 7 and 9. Deuteronomy 7 and 9. Deuteronomy chapter 7 and verse 9. Know therefore that the Lord thy God, he is God, the faithful God, which keepeth covenant and mercy with them that love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations.
Now let's see the opposite of that, brother. Go to verse 10.
Deuteronomy chapter 7 and verse 10. And we repayeth them that hate him to their face, to destroy them. He will not be slack to him that hateth him. He will repay him to his face.
And here's the key part, brother. Verse 11.
Thou shalt therefore keep the commandments and the statutes and the judgments which I command thee this day to do them.
Okay, us brothers teach this a lot in our camp. Whenever you see therefore, that means everything that occurred before that is what you're supposed to take heed to. Okay, that's very important instruction. Thou shalt therefore keep the commandments and the statutes and the judgments which I command thee this day to do them. This is a relationship describing how you love the Most High by versus how you hate the Most High. So again, when brothers tell you that they keep the commandments, we're out there teaching our people to keep the commandments. We are teaching you the two greatest commandments, that you are to love the Most High and that you are also to love your brother. But again, that's not just something that we say. It comes with an action. That action is the keeping of the commandments. And there's plenty more on this. Like this is something that's not even really up for a debate if you really have ears to hear. We understand how we show that we love the Most High, that relationship between us keeping his commandments. Okay, I'm going to go somewhere in Deuteronomy 8, brother. I think we can start this one at verse 5, brother. Deuteronomy chapter 8 and verse 5 through 6.
Deuteronomy chapter 8 and verse 5. Thou shalt also consider in thine heart that as a man chasteneth his son, so the Lord thy God chasteneth thee. Therefore thou shalt keep the commandments of the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways and to fear him.
Khan. And this is beautiful as well, because the Most High is comparing the relationship between him and us to a father and his son, knowing that as a father chasteneth his son, so will the Most High chasteneth you when you don't keep those commandments. So this again is describing a relationship of love. We just want to let our Christian brothers and sisters and anybody else who's stumbling over that to understand that when brothers are out there teaching to keep the commandments, we are still teaching the two greatest commandments. There's not a separation between those two things. So a lot of times, again, like I said, we just had a long dialogue with a brother in our camp who essentially said, I didn't get a chance to display that entire video, but it would only be right to say by the end of that dialogue, that brother did say that he agreed. I know it was somewhat of it seemed to be a contentious dialogue in the beginning, but by the end, and that part didn't make it on the YouTube, that brother did say that he agreed with the edification that we brought out, and that he was willing to understand that all the commandments of the Most High he ought to keep, from the least to the greatest. So that was a mighty build with that brother. And I know that part wasn't done in the video, but on that brother's behalf, I definitely want to, give that piece of information. But again, one of the things that brother did say was that a person that's trying to keep all of the commandments of the Most High lacks faith, and essentially saying that there's something wrong with their keeping of the commandments. But what we're trying to get across to them is that by keeping the commandments, we are therefore showing that we love the Most High and that we don't hate him. So again, we're going to get the classic again, brother. We bring this out almost all the time at camp because we know that Israel was chosen, and we always bring out, now that we're chosen, what is it that the Most High requires of us? Can we get Deuteronomy 10 and 12 through 13, brother?
Deuteronomy chapter 10 and verse 12. And now, Israel, what doeth the Lord thy God require of thee, but to fear the Lord thy God, to walk in all his ways, and to love him, and to serve the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul, to keep the commandments of the Lord.
Salakia, brother. I always, you know how we do it at camp. We always stop right there, but that's for a reason. That's to help you understand that this love that you have for the Most High is not coming without something. Just like you wouldn't accept any love like that. Us brothers try to make that plain all the time. You don't feel the love of your wife, your children, or whoever it is that's claiming to love you because they said they do. It's the actions that they do, the actions that they put forth to show that love. Why would we give the Most High anything less? Okay, so when you say that you love the Most High, we're trying to teach our people that that's coming with an action. That action is the keeping of his commandments. Salak, I didn't mean to cut you off, brother. You can just go ahead and read verse 13.
Deuteronomy chapter 10 and verse 13. To keep the commandments of the Lord and his statutes, which I command thee this day for thy good.
Khan, for thy good. So again, we just want to nail this point home. This is also mighty when you read the curses that the children of Israel were going to go through. And there was a real key part about these curses versus us keeping the commandments and being blessed. And that's found in Deuteronomy chapter 28. I want to say we can start at verse 45, brother, because a lot of times you can tell, I don't think Christians just come outright and say this, but you can see it in the spirit. You can see it in the fruits that a lot of those who have that certain mindset bear, and they really just hate the commandments of the Most High. They're not going to come right out and say it. They're going to go and wrestle in Paul's letters, perhaps, or they're going to come up with some kind of reason, some kind of justification to not keep the Most High's commandments. When honestly, if they look deeper in themselves, a lot of times they can see that they just have a real disdain for the Most High and his commandments. They don't want to start there and they don't want to end there. They just really don't know how to tell you, I want to eat pork so much that forget Most High's commandments. I'm going to go and wrestle and find any justification I can to be able to do what it is that I want to do. So there's also a mindset that we should have when it comes to the Most High's commandments. We're going to get that though, brother. Deuteronomy 28, and we can start at verse 45.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 45. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which I commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things.
I just wanted to stop right there, brother. That's very important. That why? Because thou servest not Yahawah with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things. So there's a joy that's supposed to come with keeping the Most High's commandments. You know, you're not going to find a better account, and Most High willing, we do get into that, than observing King David and how his heart was towards the Most High and towards his commandments. Now, we all know that David was someone who was noted for having a perfect heart towards the Most High. So look at how King David felt about the Most High and his commandments, his statutes, and his judgments. You can learn a whole lot by seeing how King David moved. So again, we're just trying to nail it in that this love that a lot of our Christian brothers and sisters profess to have for the Most High and even for their brother is going to come with an action. And that action is clearly the keeping of his commandments. But we just want to go to another nail, brother, because we use this out there in the highways and hedges all the time. We know that we're getting this out of the law. Let's get it straight from the mouth of Yahawah, brother, because a lot of times, you know, we know some of our Christian brothers and sisters, they kind of shy away from the Old Testament, but let's get the understanding as well from Yahawah about the relationship between love and the keeping of his commandments. Now, this is the classic, brother, John 14 and 15.
John chapter 14 and verse 15. If ye love me, keep my commandments.
Now, that's plain. If ye love me, keep my commandments. Okay, there's a lot of good wisdom in here, but I specifically want to go to verse 21, brother. If we can read John chapter 14 and verse 21 to go with that.
John chapter 14 and verse 21. He that hath my commandments and keepeth them, he it is that loveth me.
Now, brother, can that get much more plain? Okay, because they always wondering why we teaching the commandments. Because the love that you're showing towards the Most High or towards your brother is going to come with the keeping of the commandments. This is just being made plain. Brother, can we read that again from the top?
John chapter 14 and verse 21. He that hath my commandments and keepeth them, he it is that loveth me. And he that loveth me shall be loved of my Father, and I will love him and will manifest myself to him.
So I don't think that could be made much more plain coming out of the mouth of the Messiah, coming out of the mouth of Yahawah. Okay, that if you do love him, you're the one that's going to be keeping his commandments. So Most High willing, we're getting that established and just making that very plain. Okay, I was going to bring out, matter of fact, I am going to bring it out, man. I know we've beat this in the head, but let's bring out another classic, brother. 1 John chapter 5 and verse 2, and then we're going to move on to another point. But 1 John chapter 5 and verse 2, brother.
1 John chapter 5 and verse 2. By this we know that we love the children of God, when we love God and keep his commandments. For this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not grievous.
There's a reason why brothers bring that out consistently at camp, because we want to make sure that you understand what that love looks like. It's going to look like the keeping of the commandments. Just like you would expect an action with any type of love that you were receiving, the Most High God is a God of action as well. We read that in 1 Samuel 2 and 3. So in like manner, we ought to keep the commandments if we say that we do honestly love the Most High and that we love his only begotten son and that we love our brother and our neighbor. So again, we just wanted to make sure we establish that point. And I said I wanted to dive into King David a little bit. I'm going to go to the book of Psalm chapter 119. Now that's a long chapter, but that's a beautiful chapter. If you want to get a perfect example of what a man who was said to have a perfect heart towards the Most High. We know Christians love to bring up the heart. That's a great chapter to see what a man that had a perfect heart towards the Most High thought about the Most High and about his commandments. So like I said, a lot of Christians just don't want to come straight out and say, you just really have a hate and a disdain for the Most High's commandments. I'm not saying it's everybody, okay? Don't hear what I'm not saying, But that has to be a good amount of people who rest in Paul's letters and stay away from the Old Testament, stay away from hearing the Most High's word, staying away from hearing what things I said to the brother in that very dialogue. If you know that the Most High thinks that a particular food is an abomination, why would you still eat that and say that you love him? I still never got a question. I mean, I still never got an answer on that question, or at least not a straight answer. So again, if you say that you love the Most High, that's still going to come with the keeping of the commandments. Us brothers just want to make sure we nail that point home. But again, King David having a perfect heart towards the Most High, this whole chapter is mighty to read. The book of Psalms, chapter 119. But we're just going to get a different few verses out of here. Let's go to verse 14 first, brother. Verse 14 through 16.
Psalm chapter 119 and verse 14. I have rejoiced in the way of thy testimonies as much as in all riches. I will meditate in thy precepts and have respect unto thy ways. I will delight myself in thy statutes. I will not forget thy word.
Khan, how many of us Christian brothers can say that? Okay, you have to also be just in love with the Most High's testimonies, with his statutes, and with his word. So it almost seems like brothers are running around to seek out justification for not obeying and following and loving the Most High's word. And you're right, it is about what's in your heart. But what if in your heart is rebellion towards the Most High's word and his commandments? So you just have to make sure that you're not walking on that slippery road where you feel like you're trying to rightly divide the word of truth by resting in Paul's letters, as we were warned. Us brothers always bring that out in 2 Peter chapter 3. We were warned that a lot of people end up resting in Paul's letters to their own destruction. So you have to answer that heart question for yourself. Are you truly just loathing the Most High's commandments, or are you really trying to rightly divide the word of truth? Because I thought that as sincere as babes in this truth, we should desire the sincere milk of the word. That's 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 2. Even Paul was living on the law and the prophets. This is what they were reading and what they were studying. So it would seem to be unwise if all we know is to become experts on Paul's epistles. We don't understand the context or the audience, but yet we go in there and we don't seem to search out the Most High's word. King David seemed to have a different heart towards the Most High, loving and searching after his precepts. Brother, we're going to add to that. Can we get verse 34 through 35, brother, same chapter.
Psalms chapter 119 and verse 34. Give me understanding, and I shall keep thy law. Yea, I will observe it with my whole heart. Make me to go in the path of thy commandments, for therein I do delight.
No, brother, I have a hard time.
For therein I do delight.
For therein do I delight. So King David delighted in the Most High's commandments. Okay, that's what it also means to have a perfect heart towards the Most High. And Most High willing, that's what we can establish for our Christian brothers and sisters. And like I said, even for brothers and sisters in this truth. Because believe it or not, this gets a lot deeper when you do get into the New Testament. Because while our Christians, brothers and sisters are missing something, there could also be something that we who teach the law and know the law and even do our best to live in the law, there is something that we could be missing as well. So we are going to get into that as well. But I want to say one more, brother. Psalms 119. Let's do verse 46, brother, down to 48.
Psalms chapter 119 and verse 46. I will speak of thy testimonies also before kings, and will not be ashamed. And I will delight myself in thy commandments, which I have loved.
No, brother, I hated them.
Which I have loved. My hands also will I lift up into thy commandments, which I have loved, and I will meditate in thy statutes.
So again, we just want to make these things plain. King David, a man whose heart was considered perfect towards the Most High, loved the Most High commandments. Before you go in there and teach somebody that they ought not to keep from the least to the greatest of the commandments, do you love the Most High's commandments? Before you're so quick to do away with them and tell people they're no longer binding, okay, do you love the Most High's commandments? You need to really ask yourself that question, because King David, who had a perfect heart towards the Most High, seems to love his commandments. I'm going to get one more, brother, just even going past King David, just to read a little bit extra on that same point about loving the Most High and his commandments. If we can go to the book of Baruch, brother, Baruch chapter 4. Let me share that. Is that coming up?
Yep.
Okay, Baruch chapter 4, and it's the classic, brother, just verse 4.
Baruch chapter 4 and verse 4. O Israel, happy are we, for things that are pleasing to God are made known unto us.
Con.
Be,
No, I just wanted to stop
oh,
right there, brother,
okay.
because this says that Israel should be happy in knowing that the things that are pleasing to God are made known to us. Think about how mighty that is. Again, before you try to do away with the commandments and all the things that he takes pleasure in, isn't it mighty that the things that the Most High takes pleasure in are made known to you? Why do you want to do away with these things? If the Most High said that swine are eating things that are abominable in the oceans are an abomination, why do you just want to do away with these things if you never truly had a love for the Most High? This is something you should question yourself if you think your love is as strong as you say it is. Because again, love is not just the saying of these things. A brother told me the same. I love him because I go out here and teach people. Brother, okay, that's love. That's really loving your brother. And I could say that's loving the Most High. But brother, love is also the keeping of his commandments. Don't go in there and get used to not being happy that the things that are made known to us are those things that please the Most High. That's a reward. That's a gift. It's a gift to be able to know the things that please the Most High. So again, we ought to look at the Most High's commandments in that way. That's how we're also not going to have just that person that's trying to be justified by the commandments, but that person who also has a perfect heart towards the commandments and toward the Most High. Again, we're going to get into that because that really cuts deep. Matter of fact, just to segue into that, brother, I want to go to 1 Kings chapter 15, because again, it speaks about King David and about his heart. I know we mentioned it. I just want to kind of get that point in there, brother, about King David. If we can go to 1 Kings chapter 15 and start at verse 3.
1 Kings chapter 15 and verse 3. And he walked in all the sins of his father, which he had done before him, and his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father.
I just wanted to get that, brother. Notice I wasn't making that up. This said that King David's heart was perfect with the Most High. Okay. Matter of fact, just keep going, brother, so we can get a little bit more context. And verse 4.
Nevertheless, for David's sake, did the Lord his God give him a lamp in Jerusalem, to set up his son after him, and to establish Jerusalem. Because David did that which was right in the eyes of the Lord, and turned not aside from anything that he commanded him all the days of his life, save only in the matter of Uriah and the Hittite.
So anybody who knows the Old Testament, or knows the Bible for a good degree, knows that King David also sinned. Psalm 51 is actually a really beautiful chapter about about King David confessing his sin to the Most High. So King David, even though he's transgressed, still was considered to have a perfect heart towards the Most High. Okay, so we've had brothers that come to us and they ask that classic question, brother, you ever sinned? You ever did this? You ever did? That's not an excuse to continue in your sin. That's why I don't really get it. Brothers only usually use that argument when it comes to keeping God's commandments. Like if you told your child right now I always use this, if you told your child right now to clean their room perfectly and they didn't do it, them not doing it perfectly is not an excuse to throw their hands up and say to hell with it and not do anything, to not even try. So I don't know why people try the Most High like that. Like all of a sudden now, just because you're not living in perfection, we do away with trying at all. That's not what we're supposed to do. That's not what King David did. King David didn't let his transgression take away his faith, or take away him trying to have a perfect heart towards the Most High, or from loving the Most High and his laws. So again, that's just a faulty argument for people that say that, but we hear that a lot at camp. They always think that because a brother's not necessarily perfect. Brother, you ever ate pork before? Yeah, we've ate pork before. We repented, and now we turn away from that transgression. Why can't you do the same? Instead of looking for an excuse to continue in your sin. Most High forbid, that's what we're doing. Brother, I just wanted us to read a little bit of Psalm chapter 51. Because this whole chapter is beautiful. Again, man, I don't want us to read all of it. But if we can just start at verse, let's just start at verse 2, brother, and read a little bit of King David's prayer to the Most High in regards to his sin.
Psalms chapter 51 and verse 2. Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin. For I acknowledge my transgressions, and my sin is ever before me. Against thee only, have I sinned, and done this evil in thy sight, that thou mightest be justified when thou speakest, and be clear when thou judgest. Behold, I was shapen in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. Behold, thou darest truth in the inward parts, and in the hidden part thou shalt make me to know wisdom. Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. Make me to hear joy and gladness, that the bones which thou hast broken may rejoice. Hide thy face from my sins, and blot out mine iniquity. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me.
Con.
Cat,
We can stop right there, brother. I just wanted to make it plain that we get an example of King David, who had a perfect heart towards the Most High and his love towards the Most High and his commandments. So I would just really like to pose that question to my Christian brothers and sisters who don't agree with us brothers going out there to teach people to repent. And in that repentance, we're teaching people to turn back to the Most High's commandments. I just want to pose this to these brothers, that if you do believe that the greatest commandments is to love the Most High, how do we show that love? What does a perfect heart towards the Most High look like? And if you truly loathe and hate his commandments, how can you ever say that you have a perfect heart towards him? So we just want to make that point plain to our brothers and sisters who may be stumbling at that to say that we love the Most High is the keeping of his commandments. But, and this is the other part that we wanted to dive into, because those brothers aren't just, a lot of time we like to think our Christian brothers and sisters just lost. And some, I mean, we can all be lost to a degree. I don't like to do the pointing of the finger so much, but they have a reason why they believe some of the things that they believe. So it's really mighty to go into some of the topics that they want to go into, that they want to talk about. And believe it or not, there's a lot of wisdom to be found in that. I say that because there is such thing as a person who's keeping the commandments only because they're trying to be justified by the keeping of the commandments. And their heart is not perfect towards the Most High. That thing does exist too. Just like there's that Christian brother and sister who believes that they can have a good heart towards the Most High, but keep none of the commandments. There's also a brother or sister that believes they can keep commandments and it doesn't really matter where their heart is. We're going to prove by the end of this, again, Most High willing, that even that's not so. That it's the marriage of those two things, loving and the keeping of the commandments, that makes one have a perfect heart before the Most High. So we're going to start with the classic, brother, if we can. The book of Matthew, chapter 19. You know, many of us know this account, so we're just going to dive into it. You know, again, the topic that's at hand is, why do we love the Most High? Is it love or is it for justification? Most High willing, by the end of this, we're going to show that you should love him. That's what gets you to keep the commandments. Us brothers are not keeping the commandments in an effort to be justified by our righteousness, okay? Because that's the main thing that Christians would love to take you to. We agree with Paul when he says that by the law, no man shall be justified. But it is going to be a matter of your heart. But if your heart is truly perfect towards the Most High, you are still going to love his commandments. That's a marriage, not a divorcing of the two. But again, I want to get a little bit into the account of a person that may keep commandments. They may look righteous on the outside, but yet if their heart is far from the Most High, it's also unprofitable for them to be moving in that spirit. If we can get the classic account, brother, Matthew chapter 19 and let's start at verse 16, brother.
Matthew chapter 19 and verse 16. And behold, one came and said unto him, Good master, what good thing shall I do that I may have eternal life? And he said unto him, Why callest thou me good? There is none good but one, that is God. But if thou wilt enter into life, keep the commandments.
And this is the main part that I want to get into, because a lot of times us brothers on the highways and hedges, we stop right here. And I'm not saying brothers do that for a facetious reason or for a shady reason, but it's also mighty to understand how the rest of this account goes. We can go and continue to verse 18, brother.
He said unto him, Which? Jesus said, Thou shalt do no murder. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Honor thy father and thy mother, and thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. The young man said unto him, All these things have I kept from my youth up. What lack I yet? Jesus said unto him, If thou wilt be perfect, go and sell that thou hast, and give it to the poor, and thou shalt have treasure in heaven, and come and follow me. But when the young man heard these sayings, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions.
So again, this is a great account of a person who kept the commandments, but their heart was not perfect towards the Most High, nor towards his only begotten Son. So there is such thing that exists. There is a person that can keep many things, especially the things that we all can see, but yet they don't really have a perfect heart towards the Most High. When you really go into Paul's letters, and that's when they become beautiful. Us brothers say this all the time when we talk. Paul's letters are beautiful to a person who isn't trying to do away with the law. You truly understand what Paul is really trying to get across. That it's not your keeping of the law that makes you righteous before the Most High, because you fail somewhere anyway. There's no way you're I say this at camp all the time. There's no way you're going to get up to the judgment seat of Christ and give him your stat sheet. I kept this many fringes and I did this on this holy day, this, that, and the third. And now he's like, oh yeah, get in here. No, like if your heart's not perfect towards the Most High, you're also missing something as well. So this is a mighty account to understand that there is a person that can do mighty works, but if their heart is far from the Most High, it's also unprofitable unto them. We're going to get another classic account, brother, in the book of Luke, chapter 18. Okay, a lot of us know this, the count between the Pharisee and the publican. Can we start at verse 8 with this, brother? Luke chapter 18 and verse 8.
Luke chapter 18 and verse 8. I tell you that he will avenge them speedily. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man cometh, shall he find faith on the earth?
I wanted to start there. I was actually meditating on that one precept for a minute, because and Most High willing, we can end up doing a mighty breakdown going into that, because us brothers have been talking maybe for months about what it truly means to have a fear of the Most High. I think a lot of us believe that that's something that's abundant, but it seems like that's something that's actually rare, to have a true fear of the Most High, to truly have faith in the Most High, to really treat him like he's real. That's why I love this question that Yahawah is posing. When the Son of Man cometh, shall he find faith on the earth? So again, Christians are not always wrong, because there is such thing as a brother that's only keeping the commandments for faulty reasons, whether it's because he does so in the sight of men, he does so because he's trying to earn his own righteousness. Maybe he's doing so. We asked the brother this, and I think it was a mighty conversation, but we asked the brother this about the commandments that he learned. And I'm not even going to say that this is a wrong answer. It's not a judgment that I'm trying to make. I'm just giving examples here. But we asked the brother this question just the other night. Why do you keep the commandments? That's kind of what inspired this lesson here. We asked the brother, why do you keep the commandments? And the brother said, because I want to get revenge on my enemies. I want to be able to be above my enemies and get revenge. And I want to be on the top, because right now we're on the bottom. And as true as that is, because we know that that's in the law, Deuteronomy 28, Deuteronomy 30, we understand that that's in there. But I thought it was just telling that that's what that brother got from it. Again, not to try to judge that brother to say that he was wrong, but I would hope that that brother could fit loving the Most High somewhere in there. That's the reason why you also keep the commandments. Again, us brothers who are learned in this truth, we know that that's what Matthew 22 and 36 was really going into. That the two greatest of the commandments is to love the Most High and to also love your brother. So again, there is someone who does the commandments, but it's for a reason that doesn't make their heart perfect towards the Most High. Even I believe that's Peter, brothers, y'all might know. I think that's maybe 1 Peter 4, where he says the righteous shall scarcely be saved. So where does the sinner and the ungodly appear? Okay, roughly paraphrasing that. But again, there is such thing as a person who keeps many works and keeps many commandments, but yet if their heart is far away from the Most High, again, it's going to end up being unprofitable to them. I just wanted to add that segue in there, brother. If we can continue with verse 9, brother. Luke chapter 18 and verse 9.
Luke chapter 18 and verse 9. And he spake this parable unto certain which trusted in themselves that they were righteous and despised others. Two men went up into the temple to pray, the one a Pharisee and the other a publican. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank thee that I am not as the other men are, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as the publican. I fast twice in the week. I give tithes of all that I possess. And the publican, standing afar off, would not lift up so much as his eyes unto heaven, but smote upon his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone that exalted himself shall be abased, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted.
Con. Now that's a mighty account. You know, again, that's why this conversation actually taps into both areas. Some of our Christian brothers and sisters, as well as some of us brothers who do know and live by the law to the best of our ability. Okay, there does have to be a marriage between both of these things. So when we talk about why do we keep the commandments, we can't skip out on the love. A lot of times we let I know our battle is against Christians who abuse that, but we can't also miss that very important point about trying to make sure that we have a perfect heart towards the Most High. That it's not our own righteousness that's going to get us saved, that's going to get us the kingdom. Okay, so we definitely want to make sure that we ourselves are able to marry those two things as well. Because again, you may know a brother like that. You may know a brother that more than not, he's a finger pointer. I'm glad I'm not like y'all brothers. I'm glad I'm not like this. I fasted this many times. I did this many weeks. I kept this amount of stuff. I don't know that brother's heart. It's hard to say that brother's wicked, but it would be eerie for me to read this account. I'll say that. It would give me a little bit of pause if somebody recorded me saying those things and then I went into Luke 18 and read this account. Because one person seemed to have more of a perfect heart towards the Most High. And that ended up being the publican who was seen as more justified than that Pharisee who was pointing off or giving off his stat sheet, like I said, to Yahawah. And meanwhile, he also despised others, that they were unrighteous. So again, this conversation really goes down both sides of the aisle, and Most High willing, it's edifying to whoever needs to receive it. Brother, I wanted to also add, let's get the book of Matthew, chapter 23. Again, we just getting to both sides of this coin of the people who essentially abuse their love or what they feel is love for the Most High by saying they don't have to keep any of his commandments, but also going into the other side of it of people who think that they're going to earn their way, or to people who despise others and they don't have their heart perfect towards the Most High. Okay, Most High willingness is edifying to both sides. But I just want to get a little bit more into that person that can do things that maybe we, on the outside, we think that person's righteous. You know, there's so many commandments you can keep. And us brothers teach this in Dallas all the time. A lot of times people walk away. And if it's not for you, don't take offense to it. I know, I'm not trying to offend anybody. But a lot of times a brother walks away not eating swine, wearing his fringes, growing his beard, but he never truly has the why he's doing those things. That would be unfortunate. So it's one thing to teach a person to keep the commandments so that he can appear righteous. But if you aren't also cleaning up the inside of that man, the inside of his cup, then that brother's not really clean. And we want to make sure that we're equipping our brothers and sisters with being able to be clean on the inside, that the outside may be clean as well. So, brother, if we can just start Matthew chapter 23, we can start at verse 2, brother. Zion, you want to get in there? Are you following along? Anybody? If another brother want to read or got anything to pull out, definitely jump in there. Salaki. What is the live good, brother?
Yeah, but like me and Jason got off the live. You gotta add us back in.
All right, Con. All right, Salaki, if y'all can give me a minute, I gotta add the brothers back in real fast. Let me see here. All right, brothers back in.
All right, I'm back on. Looks like.
All
You
right,
hear me?
Con.
Yeah, I hear brothers. Y'all don't even know what happened with that. So Salaki.
Yeah, just kind of paused and dropped us off.
Okay, Con. Well, yeah, where we was at, man, we was just again going into the context of us making sure that we also have our inwards parts, make sure that we have a perfect heart towards the Most High and towards his commandments, that also goes along with the keeping of them. And we're just going to go into this mighty account that Yahawah gave to the scribes and Pharisees in Matthew chapter 23. Either brother can pick up, man. If Brother Zion, if you want to read, or if brothers got any precepts to add in there, all praise to the Most High. Most High willing, y'all can throw them in there. But if another brother want to read or whatever, that's cool. I want to see if we could pick up at Matthew 23 and verse 2.
Con, I can read
Con.
the book of Matthew, chapter 23 and verse 2, saying, the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. All therefore, whatsoever they bid you observe, that observe and do. But do not ye after their works, for they say and do not. For
Keep
they
going,
bind,
brother.
for they bind heavy burdens and grievous to the bone, to be borne, and lay them on men's shoulders. But they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. But all their works they do for it to be seen of men. They make broad their phylacteries, and enlarge the borders of their garments, and love the uppermost rooms at feasts, and the chief seats in the synagogues, and greetings in the markets, and to be called of men, Rabbi, Rabbi.
Con. Now, this whole chapter, I mean, anybody who's familiar with the word knows what this chapter is going into. Okay, it's going into men who bear the exact same fruits that we're talking about you don't want. You don't want to be that person that looks righteous on the outside. In the sight of men, you seem to be doing everything right. But yet your inside, the inside of your cup is filthy. Matter of fact, we want to get that part, brother. Matthew chapter 23. If we can just also pick up, brother. Let's pick up at verse 25.
God, verse 25. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye make clean the outside of the cup and of the platter, but within they are full of extortion and excess. Thou blind Pharisee, cleanse first that which is within the cup and platter, that the outside of them may be clean also.
Hmm.
Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye are like unto whited sculptures, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead man bones, and of all uncleanness. Even so ye also outwardly appear righteous unto men, but within ye are full of hypocrisy and iniquity.
And
Woe,
iniquity. We can start right there, brother. And iniquity, hypocrisy and iniquity. So again, we have to marry these two things. Christians aren't all the way wrong. They just perhaps have a stumbling block. That's what we calling it. To where they believe that it's all heart and it's all love, but they don't know what the heart and the love means. But there's also another stumbling block where many of us are professors and teachers and doctors of the law, and a lot of us even look righteous on the outside because we're keeping those things that the law says to keep. But yet, if it's not reaching the inside of us, it's also still unprofitable. I'm willing to believe that Yahawah thought that they were in more danger than the ones who were opposite of that. If you look at Yahawah's teaching from the beginning to the end, I always encourage anybody that asks me to do that. In order to say that we know how Yahawah moved and walked, wouldn't it be mighty to go and read how he moved and walked? So when you see his ministry and you see who he rebuked the most, and you see who he had a little bit more mercy and grace upon, it was generally those people who knew what they ought do, but did it not. So those sometimes are going to be those brothers who are beaten with more stripes because they know more and yet they still do it not. So most High forbid we're somebody who doesn't teach these mighty things as well. We teach a bunch of people to be fringes wearers and beard growers and not pork eaters, but yet their heart is still far away from the Most High. And you're going to be able to know them by their fruits. So again, we all have to marry these things together so that we can have a perfect heart towards the Most High. I just want to add to that, brother, if we can, Matthew chapter 5, because this is also a mighty account about being perfect. A lot of us know this. We use this. Matthew chapter 5. Let's start at verse 43, brother, if we can. Matthew chapter 5 and verse 43.
the book of Matthew, chapter 5, and verse 43. Ye have heard that it hath been said, Thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. For if ye love them which love you, what reward have ye? Do not even the publicans the same? And if ye salute your brethren only, what do ye more than others? Do not even the publicans so? Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect.
Now there's a lot in this. I'm gonna just be honest. When I first came into this truth, you know, and it was a stumbling block for me. I knew that brothers will only usually recite Matthew 5 and 48, you know, and it was always in the sense of somebody who was not doing 100% of the law correctly. And I'm not saying that that's what brothers' point or aim was, but if you're being honest with yourself, you probably know that a lot of us can end up just focusing on that one verse saying, be ye therefore perfect, be perfect. Yahawah said, be perfect. But it's so important to read the context in that. Remember, we see that word therefore again in verse 48. Be ye therefore perfect. That means we need to go back to all of the things that was said before the therefore came. Whenever somebody says therefore, they want you to pay attention to the things they said prior to that. And when you really break this down, this account down, this is talking about a person who essentially puts on righteousness like a coat. Around one person, the coat is off. Around another person, the coat is on. But perfection is for this to be in you. Us brothers say this all the time. You can't just be humble out there on the highways and hedges, or even vice versa. Imagine you being humble in your house, but you come out there and you a lion on the highways and hedges. And don't take what I'm not saying. I know there's a time for everything, but what we're talking about is that these are not qualities that a person just wears every single, you know, puts on, like I said, like a coat. But if you are practicing humble, let it be a part of you. Everybody who sees you should see that humility. Everybody who sees you should see that patience. Everybody who knows you should know your fear of the Most High. It's not something you turn on for camp. It's not something you turn off and turn on depending on who you're around, or if you got a lot of mighty brothers around you. See, that's really what's kind of missing a lot of times, is brothers don't have the same spirit as they do in other places. So we go out to camp and we're a different person. We go home and we're a different person. We go to our job and at work and we're a different person. I'm led to believe that this perfection is going into being complete. If you are humble, it's just what you are. It's not an act you're putting on. It's not a show. I say this all the time at camp. It's not WWE. We're not playing a role. We're not playing characters. Are you patient or aren't you? Are you humble or aren't you? Because if you truly were, then you should be able to be these things completely. That's what it seems like this account is really getting into. That's why Yahawah is comparing people who do stuff for certain people or in certain areas, and then in other areas they don't do that. So when it's going into perfect, it seems like it's going into that. Again, all of these are qualities that someone is going to be putting on when they're trying to have a perfect heart towards the Most High. Us brothers say this all the time because brothers know you deal with scoffers all the time. And whether you're at camp, whether you're in your life, you're going to be dealing with scoffers all the time. When you speak to people, do you speak to them as if you're just talking to them? Or do you speak to them as if everything you do so in the sight of the Most High? Believe it or not, that makes this walk so much easier, because people ask me that sometimes, brother, you this amount of patient, you this amount of humble, you was this way with this brother, you was this way with that brother. It's so much mighty to understand, brother. I want to move as if I do so in the sight of the Most High. It's not the brother or the sister that comes up that's going to change or take my patience away, or that's going to take my humility away, because it's not about them. This battle is not between me and that person. Instead, it's a battle between if my heart is perfect with the Most High. So that's a mighty way that perfection, I feel like, is described in that account, Matthew chapter 5 and verse 48. Because again, let's get into another mighty account, brother. I want to go to Romans chapter 2 just to kind of tackle that point again. Because again, there's a person who is keeping the commandments, but their heart also isn't right towards the Most High. We want to make sure we address both of those things, that everybody, regardless of what side of the aisle you may be on, is edified. If we can start, brother, I want to say Romans chapter 2. Let's start at verse 3, brother, if we can. Romans chapter 2 and verse 3.
The book of Romans chapter 2 and verse 3. And thinkest thou this, O man, that judgest them which do such things, and doest the same, that thou shalt escape the judgment of God? or despisest thou the riches of his goodness and forbearance and long suffering, not knowing that the goodness of Yahweh leadeth thee to repentance? But after thy hardness and impenitent heart treasures up unto thyself wrath against the day of wrath and revelation of the righteous judgment of Yahweh, who will render to every man according to his deeds, to them who by patient continuance and well-doing seek for glory and honor and immortality, eternal life. But unto them that are contentious and do not obey the truth, but obey unrighteousness, indignation and wrath, tribulation and anguish upon every soul of man that doeth evil, of the Jew first, and also of the Gentile.
Con. Now, brother, if we can, let's also pick up at verse 17. Again, I mean, if it doesn't apply to a brother, it's not for you. You know, I know that there's many different brothers, you know, but a lot of us do need to hear this edification as well, because again, there's a relationship, a marriage between the law and also having a perfect heart towards the Most High. I said it one time at camp, and hopefully this is a good analogy. If the only reason you don't commit adultery is because your brother got his stone in his hand, you know, ready to knock your head off, then is your heart really made perfect towards that law? There's certain things that you don't do just because of the judgments. You don't do just because the law says it. You don't do it just because you're trying to do so in the sight of men, but you actually want a perfect heart towards the Most High. It's not about the stone in your brother's hand that's making you not commit adultery. Neither when it comes to lying, neither when it comes to stealing, neither when it comes to bearing false witness, neither when it comes to not having a fear of the Most High. But these things you don't do so for any other reason except that you have a perfect heart towards the Most High. This why we keep the commandments is a deep conversation. Again, Most High willing is edifying. But if we can, brother, let's start at Romans 2 and 17.
The book of Romans, chapter 2 and verse 17. Behold, thou art called a Jew, and protest in the law, and makest thy boast of Yahweh, and knowest his will, and approvest the things that are more excellent, being instructed out of the law, and art confident that thou thyself art a guide of the blind, a light of them which are in darkness, an instructor of the foolish, a teacher of babes, which has the form of knowledge, and of the truth and the law. Thou therefore which teachest another, teachest thou not thyself? Thou that preachest a man should not steal, do thou steal? Thou that sayest a man should not commit adultery, do thou commit adultery? Thou that abhorrest idols, do thou commit sacrilege? Thou that makest thy boast of the law, through breaking the law, dishonor thou God? For the name of Yahweh is blasphemed among the Gentiles through you, as it is written. For circumcision verily profiteth, if thou keep the law. But if thou be a breaker of the law, thy circumcision is made uncircumcision. Therefore, if the uncircumcision keep the righteousness of the law, shall not his uncircumcision be counted for circumcision? And shall not uncircumcision, which is by nature, if it fulfill the law, judge thee, who by the letter and circumcision does transgress the law? For he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision, which is outward in the flesh. But he is a Jew, which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, and not in the letter, whose praise is not of man, but of Yahweh.
Can we read the last verse one more time, brother?
Verse 29. But he is a Jew, which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, and not in the letter, whose praise is not of men, but of Yahweh.
So again, I hope that, because that's a deep chapter. People write, Paul's letters are not considered milk. That's why we don't recommend that a lot of our Christian brothers and sisters go in there just so they can misinterpret Paul and think that now we aren't to keep the commandments. But if you aren't stumbling on that stumbling block, Paul's letters are really beautiful. Okay, they really help a person to understand what it means to try to have a perfect heart towards the Most High. You know, what it truly means to be circumcised on your inward part in the heart. What he's saying, what it truly means to be a Jew, or, you know, to be Yahawah. So again, we want to make sure that we're also perfecting why we keep the commandments as well. Like I said, this conversation tackles a lot of different areas about why we keep the commandments of the Most High. Is it love, or is it to be justified? Okay, us brothers will obviously tell you that, I mean, at least most brothers would tell you that we're not trying to be justified by the law. But again, Most High willing, this lesson is edifying on both sides on why we ought to keep the commandments. We are doing this because we have a perfect heart towards the Most High. In short, we keep the commandments because we love God. Truly, though, not Matthew 22:36, essentially, but truly, though, we just want to show what that verse is really telling us to do. It's not saying that the greatest commandments is to love the Most High, so don't care about any of his commandments, but know that love is going to be the fulfilling of the law. Matter of fact, we can get that, brother. Let me go to 1 Timothy chapter 1. And if we can, brother, can we start at verse 4? 1 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 4.
The book of 1 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 4. Neither give heed to fables and endless genealogies, which minister questions rather than godly edifying, which is in faith, so do. Now the end of the commandment is charity, out of a pure heart, and of a good conscience, and of faith unfeigned.
Can you say
From
that verse one more time for him, brother?
Now the end of the commandment is charity, out of a pure heart, and of a good conscience, and of faith unfeigned. From which some having swerved have turned aside unto vain jangling, desiring to be teachers of the law, understanding neither what they say, nor whereof they affirm. But we know that the law is good, if a man use it lawfully.
Now that's just being made plain again. You know, the end of the commandment is charity, which, as brothers say so often, goes into love. That it's no coincidence that our forefathers, the apostles and the disciples, were really trying to nail that in. That charity is above all. You can go to 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and read that. Colossians chapter 3 and 12 on down. I want to say, what is it? 2 Peter chapter 1, pretty much the whole chapter. So much of what we do to show that we are truly the elect is putting on love for the Most High and for our brothers as well. So again, there's something that we have to get that goes so much deeper than just the letter of the law, but also making sure that we have that perfect heart towards the Most High. That's a good reason to say why you keep the commandments. You know, we know that there's a lot of different reasons why a brother or sister might come into this thing, but Most High willing, you came in this thing because you love Yahawah by Hashem Yahweh Shai, and you want to do his will. You love his commandments. You have a sincere and perfect heart towards the Most High. Those mighty qualities have to also be taught a lot more than sometimes they are. You know, there's we know what the Christian stumbling block is that sometimes they think that their love can come with no works. But another thing that can also be a stumbling block is that we think that our works don't have to necessarily come with the love. We don't want to be on either wrong side of that aisle. Those two things should be a marriage. Okay, we love the Most High, therefore we keep his commandments. We've expressed that all the way from Exodus, from the beginning, all the way to Yahweh Shai's words. Okay, even in John 14 and 15 and so on. And with that, we're going to try to wrap up pretty soon. I'll see if we have any questions that we can get into. I just want to get some of the verses we've been getting into, man, the classic. Just to kind of nail this topic home, we're going to go to Matthew chapter 22. And if we can start at verse 36 out.
The book of Matthew chapter 22, verse 36. Master, which is the great commandment in the law? Yahawah said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets.
Now, again, we all know that Christians often abuse this set of scripture, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't written for us to use it as well. Us that do love the Most High, us that do want to do his will, us that do want to do and become those things which are pleasing in his sight. These are mighty lessons for us to be able to put on as well. So we're teaching to keep the commandments. You're absolutely right. We're teaching to wear your fringes. We're teaching to grow your beard, to not eat swine's flesh. But the reason is not to be justified by these things. The reason is this is a demonstration of our faith. Matter of fact, I mean, since we just brought it up, brother, and this is one of our classics, I'm gonna just go to it real fast, brother. I'm gonna wrap up pretty soon. But if we can get this classic, brother, in James chapter 2 and verse 14, brother. Let's start at verse 17. Let's just go ahead and jump down to verse 17.
The book of James, chapter 2 and verse 17. Even so, faith, if it hath not works, is dead being alone. Yea, a man may say, Thou hast faith, and I have works. Show me thy faith without thy works, and I will show thee my faith by my works. Thou believest.
Let's just pick up, brother, if we can again, at let's say verse 23, brother. I just want to nail this point home about the relationship between faith and between our works, brother. If we can pick up at verse 23.
Verse 23. And the scripture was fulfilled, which saith, Abraham believed God, and it was imputed unto him for righteousness, and he was called the friend of God. Ye see then how that by works a man is justified, and not by faith only.
And not by faith only, Salaki, brother. But keep going, yeah, and not by faith only. So again, we're not teaching justification through the law or even through your works, but that's a marriage. Okay, if you can just keep going, brother.
Verse 25. Likewise, also was not Rahab the harlot justified by works, when she had received the messengers, and had sent them out another way? For as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also.
And again, these things are Most High willing just being made plain. I want to wrap it up on this one, 1 John chapter 4, because it really kind of summarizes or surmises a lot of the different things that we've went into. If we can just start at 1 John chapter 4, I want to say verse 7, brother, and just see how far we get. But a lot of this just goes into the relationship of how we ought to have love for the Most High, and that be the reason why we keep his commandments and really what we stake our claim on. The why we do it, the what it's for, what's going to give us strength, a stronger reason to continue in this thing. When those rains come and those storms come, if you're only doing this thing for something that's a faulty reason, your foundation may not last. I hear brothers say this a lot. Some of my elders that taught me in the truth, if the only reason why you're doing this for is because you waiting for the bombs to drop and for the destruction to come, what are you going to do when that doesn't come? A lot of people end up falling out around those times. Our elders bring it out mighty all the time when they say that. A lot of times we have our reasons for being in this thing, and it's not truly because we have our hearts perfect towards the Most High. It's not because we truly have a love towards the Most High. So if that's something that you know that you're stumbling on, Most High willingness was edifying. Because again, what do you do when those bombs don't drop when you expected them to? If you're not truly basing your foundation on the love of Yahawah Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, then all kind of weathers and storms are going to be able to break down that foundation. You want your foundation to be built on a rock, on something that's strong, that's going to last. And there's nothing that's going to be more stronger than truly doing this out of a sincere and pure and loving heart towards the Most High and towards his commandments. Most High, I think this goes into that point, brother. 1 John 4, starting at verse 7.
The book of 1 John chapter 4 and verse 7. Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God. And every one that loveth is born of Yahawah, and knoweth Yahawah. He that loveth not, knoweth not of Yahawah, for God is love.
I just got to stop right there, brother, because that still is written. I know a lot of these verses Christian use and abuse them, but these things were also written for our learning as well. So we have to also live in this as well. He that loveth not knoweth not Yahawah, for Yahawah is love. So like I said, hopefully we're marrying these two things together about why we do the commandments, why we keep the commandments, and it really is going back to us having a love for the Most High. We can continue, brother. Verse 9.
Verse 9. And this was manifested, the love of Yahweh toward us, because that Yahweh sent his only begotten Son into the world, that we might live through him. Herein is love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us, and sent his Son to be a propitiation for our sins. Beloved, if Yahweh so loved us, we ought also to love one another. No man has seen Yahweh at any time. If we love one another, Yahweh dwelleth in us, and his love is perfected in us. Hereby know we that we dwell in him, and he in us, because he hath given us of his Spirit. And we have seen and do testify that the Father sent the Son to be the Savior of the world. Whosoever shall confess that Yahweh is the Son of Yahweh, Yahweh dwelleth in him, and he in Yahweh. And we have known and believed that the love that Yahweh hath to us, Yahweh is love, and he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in Yahweh, and Yahweh in him.
I hope these, Salaki, I don't want to stop you because I know we're doing a lot of reading, but I hope our brothers and sisters are really taking time to jot these scriptures down, and I hope they're landing where they need to land, because this is very mighty wisdom that we're being given. Again, we know that a lot of our Christian brothers and sisters may manipulate this part of the Bible, but we ought not to fall on a stumbling block, in an effort to try to combat them and fight them. And now we end up ourselves missing a major piece because we spend so much time combating these scriptures as well. But these are also things that our ancient forefathers were telling us that we had to put on as well. I just wanted to also, just again reiterate that point, brother. But we can continue. I think he was at verse 16. Oh no, verse 17. Salakia, brother.
Verse 17. Herein is our love made perfect, that we may have boldness in the day of judgment. Because as he is, so are we in this world. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear, because fear hath torment. He that feareth is not made perfect in love. We love him because he first loved us.
And we can start with that, brother. But again, we just wanted to make this lesson plain and put this lesson out there. Like I said, we've had a few dialogues with brothers at our recent camps. We had one brother who he was a so-called ex-Israelite, and he wanted to come and say that us brothers are keeping the commandments, and that's taking our faith away. We definitely wanted to address that brother to let him know that's not the reason why brothers are keeping the commandments. Or at least should I say us brothers? I can only represent or speak for the brothers that I labor with and that I know. But us brothers aren't out there trying to earn our righteousness or try to build up our stats that we may go and show them before the Most High. But the opposite is that we are truly showing that we love the Most High and that we love his commandments by keeping them to the best of our ability. So that's why from the least to the greatest, we want to find ourselves obedient doing his commandments. So we wanted to also address the point that brother had. But likewise, the brother that came up basically last night, and we asked the brother why he keeps the commandments that he's going to keep. Because we also teach that, swine, fringes, beard, we teach all of these things. But we found out that it was really important to go into it with that brother. Why do you keep the commandments, brother? If your response is just because you're ready to have slaves, perhaps you should look a little deeper. I'll just say that perhaps it's something that you should look a little deeper into and make sure that you also are working to have a perfect heart towards the Most High, that you also have a love for the Most High, excuse me, and for his commandments and for your brother. Again, I'm going to check the chat and see if we have any questions. If there is anything, Most High willing, we can get to it. But that's all I had. Did Akim have anything to add? Anything another brother wanted to bring out at all?
Yeah, I just wanted to, because you talked about our foundation, so I just wanted to get Matthew chapter 7, verse 24 and 25.
I'll pray. Let me get to that, brother.
And then Ephesians 2 and 20.
All praise.
Therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man which built his house upon a rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. And then we're going to go to Ephesians 2:20 to see what that rock is. And are built upon the foundation of the apostles and the prophets, Jesus Christ himself being chief cornerstone. So that rock. So got to make sure our foundation is in Christ, keeping the commandments that he left for us.
Cons, like it, brothers. Man, my oil over here choking. Let me get some water. All right, Con, I'll praise. Did anybody else have anything to add at all? Let me check and see if we got any questions on anything.
I can pull a precept. The book of Psalms, chapter 100. And I think I'm going to start at verse 1.
All right, Con.
The book of Psalms, chapter 100 and verse 1. Make a joyful noise unto the Lord. All ye lands, serve the Lord with gladness. Come before his presence with singing. Know ye that the Lord, he is God. It is he that hath made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people, and the sheep of his pasture. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving, and into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him, and bless his name. For the Lord is good, his mercy is everlasting, and his truth endureth to all generations.
Con.
So it's just going into like serving the Lord in sincerity and with gladness. You know, you don't want to be serving the Lord and it's like being a burden to you. You know what I'm saying? You got to come to the Lord before the Lord with the gladness and with singing. You gotta want to love this truth, man. It shouldn't be like a burden or a thorn in your side. Praising the Lord. That's all I got.
Con. No, beautiful precepts, brothers. That's so mighty, man. I was just talking to a brother, and Most High willing, this is edifying. Just this somewhat of a parable that I told the brother. But imagine your wife. You know, she cooks and she cleans and she does so many things for you and for the household, but she never does any of these things coming from a real place of love. She more so does them just so in the time of need she can tell you that she did them. And our brothers may know somebody like that. That's why I kind of gave that scenario. You know, imagine having that person in your life, wife or husband, but regardless, all the things they do to just stack up so they can say, look, I did it. Happy now? I did all the stuff you wanted, versus that person that's really doing it out of a sincere heart and out of a loving heart. Who would you prefer? Okay, the Most High sees us the same way. If it burdens you, if keeping the commandments is something you're just trying to, like I said, build stats upon, that's why you go out there and point the finger at everybody who don't got your stats. Again, is your heart truly perfect towards the Most High, keeping his commandments that way? So again, this lesson, Most High willing, taps on both sides of the aisle. And I know brothers are really well learned in this, so I think it's a good question that we should just put out there. Us brothers are just here doing the edifying. It's not to judge or anything like that, but a good question for everybody should be, why do I keep the commandments? And maybe you can go in the scriptures and find, you know, a lot of good wisdom for yourself. But a good question to just have is, why do I keep the commandments? Most High willing is coming from a place of loving the Most High, loving his only begotten son, loving your brother, and therefore loving his commandments. But with that, again, you know, that's all we had. Again, just kind of checking the chat, seeing if we got any questions, anything like that. I'm gonna just read them a little bit. And all praise to everybody that came by, man. Again, us brothers are kind of, you know, we just started with some of these lives, so you know, Most High willing, we continue to increase and have you know, mightier topics. One of my brothers gave me an idea. You know, if there's something that a brother or sister wants to discuss, put that in the chat as well. You know, us brothers are, you know, also trying to go and reason with the scriptures with our brothers and sisters. So if there's a topic or a particular thing that a brother or sister wants to go into, throw it in the chat. And we'll do our best to kind of go over that topic on some of these next lives, Most High willing. But again, this is something that we all kind of doing. This is our second one. So Most High willing, he continues to increase us and these become more profitable to everyone. But again, just and shout out to my brother Jeff Berry, man. Shout out to Black Hebrew, Noble OG, Yolanda Caesar, Makai C, Kevin Williams, Holy Ghost, you know, everybody that came by. We got Michael Ma, Salaki, if I'm pronouncing that wrong. I know I am. Again, Amron Israel. Khan. All praise to the Most High, man. Again, Most High willingness was edifying. If anybody got any ideas, you know, on what you want to see us brothers cover next time, is there something that you feel like needs to be covered or discussed? Put it in the chat, put it in the comments, and us brothers will get to it. And Most High willing, we can end up getting into a topic like that today. But again, that's all I had, man. Did brothers have anything else again before we wrap up?
Yes, sir.
Khan. Well, with that, man, as always, we want to give again all praise, honor, and glory to Yahawah by Hashem Yahweh Shai. Shalom.
Hold on.
Shalom.